Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and I'm thrilled to have this week's guest on the show. Vanessa Emilio is the founder and CEO of legal123.com.au, which is one of Australia's most popular legal websites. Vanessa herself is a qualified lawyer and company secretary with over 19 years experience. And what I love about Vanessa is that she really identified a gap in the market here in Australia to really service startups from a legal perspective. I really can't wait to dive in today to tap into her expertise and have a chat with her about her entrepreneurial journey. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show today Vanessa Emilio. Vanessa, welcome and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So Vanessa, I'd love to dive in. We've introduced you and learnt about your business, which I think is an amazing, amazing business. And I'm so glad to finally have come across it. I'm thrilled actually and can't wait to dive into it more. But I'd love to hear about your personal journey to start off with, Vanessa. Like, how did you come into law and what's been your progression along the entrepreneurial path so far to get you to the point where you are today?
That's a good question. I've always been interested in the law and being a lawyer. That was never a question. And when I came to Australia to study law, I didn't plan on staying and ended up, of course, not considering going back to Canada. So I've been here since university. And I've been very, very fortunate with my jobs. I've worked in law firms, I've worked in investment banks and, managed great teams. And I think Legal 123 came up because we had all of these great ideas and I found myself alongside my jobs, alongside my professional career, helping friends, family with little legal issues that they had, whether it be wills that they hadn't done or they wanted to buy a car in another state and didn't know how to do that. So I helped them with a power of attorney. And it became quite a regular side job. And one day I was speaking with my husband and he was saying, look, what have you thought about doing this full time? And I said, I wouldn't leave my corporate job. It's really, for the number of hours that you do at a corporate job, it's really comfortable to know what you're doing, go there, get paid, come home. That's what the standard is. And so the day that I decided to start Legal 123 and quit the corporate world, colleagues, friends were shocked. And the really disappointing, I had a lot of support. But then I was very surprised. The disappointing part was there were a few friends and mostly colleagues that said, oh, so you're dropping out of the corporate world, are you? You're checking out for a little while. And I thought, that's not actually, I feel I've got as far as I can in my career. I wanted to try something different and start my own business. And so when you're dealing with other lawyers who can't understand the concept of not working in a law firm or not having the standard corporate career, you get a lot of bemusement, dissentiment. Are you really sure about this? And I think that's really hard to deal with because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're doing something completely different. And when I started Legal 123 6 years ago, people did not understand or use, it was not the norm to look online for a law firm or look online for legal assistance. So I think I was a bit early in the piece. And that's really how it all started. It was more because I actually believed there was a niche and a need for this. There were enough people asking me for assistance and my husband and I travel quite a bit, and we saw overseas various different types of businesses, not necessarily legal, and where the norm for online businesses was going. And it was only a matter of time before Australia was following. Australia is not behind in technology or picking up any of the international trends. And so we decided that this was a really good idea. I quit my job and started Legal 123 and didn't look back.
Wow, that's incredible. Vanessa, I'd love to touch on a couple of points that you raised there, which is, it's interesting that you never had the idea that you were going to be an entrepreneur at all. It literally was a decision, just having had these queries and these friends and family asking you for advice. That's when the idea kind of started to evolve in your mind, right?
Yeah, and the term entrepreneur, I wouldn't even have thought, and still don't even call myself an entrepreneur. It's really, I believed that there was a niche, and I believed in what I was doing and where I was going. And despite sort of the naysayers, I really felt that I wanted to help people in a manner that a lot of people were really frightened of lawyers. They're frightened of the cost. They're frightened of the whole concept of going to a law office or a law firm and speaking to a lawyer is actually quite daunting for a number of people. And I think equally so, there's a lot of lawyers that are not so approachable. And I wanted to give the option to people that they could actually access legal services without having to go to a law firm, without having to speak to somebody if they didn't want to.
That's fantastic. I love that. And so, Vanessa, and also another question that you raised there is that you started your career in law, and that was never a question. So how did you identify so early on that that's what you wanted to do? So oftentimes, for example, I speak with clients or friends or acquaintances, and they say, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I really don't know what, everyone talks about their purpose and their passion, and you should be doing something that you're really passionate about. And you mentioned really early on that doing law was never a question for you, that you were really clear that was what you really wanted to do. Was there anything specific that you can remember that really resonated with you around that, and that's why you wanted to be involved in the industry?
It's a very good question. I think I always loved reading as a child. I loved reading mysteries. I loved reading about cases. And I think it sort of evolved from that. And then you watch these TV shows that law is never like the TV show. You don't get to wear the great clothes and have the great offices. And it's not like that at all. It's really, really not like TV. But I think that adds to it. But really, I like the idea of helping people. I loved to me, reading a case and reading the precedents on case law was sort of a little bit of a mystery in itself, because whoever argued the best sort of argument or case would eventually, hopefully, win. And to me, I found that quite fascinating. And so it was really not because I had family that was in the legal profession. It was not anything more than that. It was just I identified that when I was quite young and thought, this is what I want to do. And then you get into law and you think, this wasn't exactly as I expected. And being in banking and finance, that was not a choice. It was quite accidental. It was where I was niched as a new baby lawyer. And you don't necessarily get a choice on where you end up. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't always helping people, which is why I moved in-house. And in-house, you're helping all the businesses. The businesses are your clients, and you're helping them solve problems. They have, a new product that they want to launch, and they're not sure how they can do it or if they can do it. Or so you're finding different ways to solve problems that they have so that they can manage or do or get through a particular problem. You're finding solutions, and that's what I really enjoy doing.
Really enjoy this, helping people. I love that, and that's such a common theme of all the women guests that I interview, is that it really comes down to wanting to make a positive change to other people's lives, right? And I love that. Vanessa, another question that I had was, it must have been pretty courageous of you to actually take the plunge, having had a high-profile corporate job and then, resigning and quitting in amongst all these naysayers to start your business from scratch. So did you start it like literally quit and then start the business? So I've actually got two questions there. Is that what you did, or did you build it up on the side? And the second thing is, did you do any what advice would you give? Because I can imagine there's a fair amount of courage needed. I certainly, for one, had to take the plunge to launch my business, my first business. And so I'd just like to hear your advice around that and what you did to really quash the naysayers and just go with it and really just trust in your instinct, trust in what you were creating.
It's a great question, and I have clients who are struggling with that same sort of issue. When I was working, I had lots of ideas and had started little projects on the side. And because I really knew I wanted to do Legal 123, I realized you can't, it's next to impossible to do a side job when you've got a full-time job that is as demanding as my job was. I mean, I was working 60 to 70 hours was pretty standard when you're running a team of lawyers in-house. And particularly when you're servicing businesses overseas, and a lot of our businesses had branches. BNY Mellon, the managers were in both Europe and the States. So you're working very early in the morning and very late at night.
Yeah.
So to try and squish in starting a new business is next to impossible. And as I've said to a few of my clients, you have to do it fully. You have to be fully invested, or wait till you have the time and or the energy to be fully invested. And I think the businesses that do well are the ones where people, as you say, take the plunge. They put their heart and soul into it. They invest fully, both. There are financial investments and also when you're out of the workforce, that's a financial investment, because it's your time that you are either not getting paid for, or you're also requiring assistance. I mean, you can't, unless you're an amazing person and can manage all the text and website design, and some people can manage that as well, but it's still a full-time job. And I think from that perspective, the only way it was going to work, and the only way we would work out if it was going to work, and in my mind, I wasn't really concerned about thinking, was it going to work or wasn't it going to work? In my mind, I was going to do it until it did. It was fantastic. I think if you're already doubting yourself, you're really going to have, I think that's your first issue. You can't start out with doubts. You think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, put my heart and soul into it. And that is probably the first, certainly lesson that I learned, that you have to do it fully. You can't dabble on the side. It takes your time, it takes your energy. And then it was very daunting. It was, it's a blow to your confidence because there are things that happen, irrespective of how good you are, that you're on a learning curve, and lawyers have no tech ability whatsoever. Well, okay, perhaps my generation don't have a lot of tech ability. You have great secretaries that help you. And so to have to sort of change your way of thinking, and you're servicing a different type of client too. You're servicing the ones who never wanted to come and see a lawyer. So from my perspective, you have to change the way you think, and really getting into the minds of your clients and customers is very, very tricky. So I think from all of that perspective, it is scary. And I think the way that I found to best deal with that is just put your head down, believe in what you do, put your heart and soul into it. And I can tell you, it takes just as many hours as my corporate job, if not more.
Sure.
If you think that it's going to be a part-timer, or you can sit back and let other people manage it for you, it's not less hours. Maybe you can, work in you don't have to take the public transport anymore to get to work, or, you can choose the hours when you work, but
that's right.
It's not any less hours, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely empathise with that one. It's especially when you're starting out. I think when you're getting to understand your clients and really getting to know what's going to work and what's not, and what your business model is going to look like, and really figuring out what you're really good at and what you enjoy and all that kind of stuff really takes time, because it's a lot of experimentation. I think, Vanessa, especially in the early days, is really like you've got this vision for the business, but really you're not sure how that's going to evolve, I guess. And that's something that I'd really like to touch on, because we talk about it. So many women as well really want to have the full picture. Like they've got this big vision and they would like, okay, I'm here and I want to be there. Now, how do I get from here to there, And I talk about it, and it was interesting because I was working with a couple of coaches and they said, this was great advice for me, is that you really just need to know the next couple of steps, because really it's almost as if you're going for a trek up the mountain, and it's like you go up the mountain, but you can't actually see the other side, but just to trust that the path is going to take you to the top of the mountain, that you really just trust yourself, trust your business, your ideas, and really just go with what you think is the next best step. And just be in that momentum. And I think that really is one of the biggest lessons that I learned as an entrepreneur, is just really take that first step, or the first couple of steps, at least have a clear picture of that, and really get to understand, as I said, your strengths, your weaknesses, your skill set, your purpose, your clients, all that kind of thing. And gradually they'll lead you to, you'll get this kind of synergistic fit, if you like, between what your customers need and want and what you want to deliver. And I think you've done that perfectly. We touched a little bit offline on that, Vanessa, around how Legal 123 has developed and over the years. And I'd love for you to share your journey around that and your experiences, because I think what you've developed with this business is just so unique, so niche, and so valuable for startups specifically, but really anyone who needs quick access to legal services. I'd love for you to share that kind of development of Legal 123 with our listeners, if that's okay.
You've hit the nail on the head, I think, with the fact that you start in a particular direction and then you have to be ready to be flexible. When we started Legal 123, I felt it should be everything to everyone. You should, service the mums and pops at home, and the startup businesses, and people trying to do other things, like, for example, holiday let their homes, their second homes. And so I was trying to have a bit of a cross section, so that, everyday people, there's something for everybody that they require, and they can easily access templates. And then as the business sort of grew and became a little bit more known to the public, I don't know, searched for, I don't know the right term for it, but it became really quite clear fairly quickly that the people who really needed the help, and the people who really were happy to access legal assistance online with a model similar to what we had, was the startup businesses. And it was everything from students. I found university students doing startups, to mums had some great ideas but didn't quite know where to start. Men who had existing businesses, and I don't mean to differentiate between men and women or anything else like that, but existing substantial businesses that wanted to go online and didn't know how to do it and didn't know where to start. They had the bricks and mortar shops, and they wanted to sell their products online. And so you realize quite quickly that everybody is a little bit of a startup, if you can use that expression, because they don't quite know what they need to do. And it's quite different to starting a shop on the street, a bricks and mortar shop. And so the traditional shops that wanted to go online, or the people with the great ideas, are all really in the same category. They still need to work out what they don't know and what they need to know. And so quickly the business shifted to helping and advising on pretty much all aspects of startup. And people were finding that they thought, oh, they could just, get somebody to design a website for them. And that's pretty much all they needed to do. And then suddenly they realized that they need a payment system to accept payments. And to do that, the banks were saying, well, where are your terms and conditions and your privacy policy? And they went, I'm not sure what I need to do to get that. And then there were other aspects to it. They needed a letter of demand, or somebody had copied their website, or, what do I do? So all of these things started driving where our products came from, the assistance we provided, and how Legal 123 sort of ended up growing and going in the direction it went. So I realized that was all part of helping people, and I loved helping the startups because for me, I had been through it all, and I had not known where to start and not known the right way to do it. And, it's through trial and error. You really learn a lot, and it's really lovely to be able to impart that and help other people do the same thing, because I think anybody starting out in an online business, I think hats off to them, because it's a lot of work and it's very it's interesting, but you don't know where to start. And so one of the reasons we offer with our templates free updates is because as a business owner, there are so many things you need to know. You can't keep track of the law and when privacy law changes, and which is quite regular, and when consumer law changes. So it's really, that's a small part of the service that we offer, but we do try and sort of help all aspects of startup. And I think it's really important for people to have the tools right at the beginning, because if they're coming to you after the fact, it's usually because something went wrong. They were getting sued by somebody who didn't receive what they thought they should have received, or they're trying to get payment for a big shipment that they sent to somebody of some baby clothes, or they, they had a problem with their website designer. Unfortunately, that's quite a common one with startups, and they didn't have a proper agreement in place. They didn't know that they didn't own the code, so that they couldn't go and sell or register their business because somebody else had set it up and somebody else owned that. There were a number of issues that came up that people don't realize that they need to know. And I think a common thread and a common theme, and this is what I say to most of my clients, and the blogs that I write are all around, if you're going to start a business, you need to know about every aspect of it. Do your research. Great if you think you can outsource it to people, but know what you're outsourcing. Know a little bit about how to design, how to code, what SEO is. Otherwise, you're just paying for something you don't know. You're not going to necessarily receive what you think you're going to receive. And then your business is just doing these little steps, 2 steps forward and 1 step backward for every time you think you're trying to get help, or you're paying an enormous amount of money for something quite different to what you thought you were getting. And I think, no matter what the business is, you need to know a little bit about everything. You need to have clear understandings. And again, I go back to agreements. It's not because I'm a lawyer, but that's the only way to have a clear understanding with your website designer, with the people who might be putting money into your business, with the people who are your clients and your customers. And consumer law, that's why they're getting really big. And the ACCC is going around and checking websites now, because that's how most business is done. So you have to have the consumer law terms on there, the privacy policies on there. I mean, that's just something that everybody needs when they have a business.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on that a little bit. And a point that you raised, Vanessa, that I think is really, really important, and I'll touch on that quickly and then move on. But I think where you've had fantastic success, and I really want to highlight that to our listeners, is that you really listened to your customers. So you took on board, you launched, you had this vision, you launched, you went for it, you took action, and then you started listening to your customers, like what did they really need, and then identified and pivoted your business to really meet the needs of the customers or clients or people that needed your help most, which I think is fantastic. And I just think it's so important to highlight again and again. It's really how important it is to listen to your initial clients to really figure out what they need and to serve them best, right? So I think congratulations on an amazing job. I think that's just fantastic. Now, I'd love to touch on you mentioned how important it is. So many people are online. Everyone's doing business online these days. And I'd love, it's a little bit off topic of what we typically cover on the show, Vanessa, but I really want to tap into your expertise, if that's okay, on the show today, and really share, you touch on how important it is to really know up front, do your research and know what's required before you actually take the plunge into entrepreneurship, because I think it saves one, so much time, so much money, because invariably, as you say, people are coming to you once they've made the mistake, and then that's probably going to be an expensive mistake that they're trying to now rectify. So what, in your experience, Vanessa, are the key legal essentials that a business needs that's starting up online? Can you just cover off on kind of essentials that people should think about considering before they actually take the leap?
The even right at the initial start, when you're thinking about having your website designed for you or developed for you, I think it's really important to know what you want, not just how it's going to work, but understand what the platforms are, understand whoever does it. There's sort of two models generally. Either you can pick out a theme and get somebody to help you set it up, or you can alternatively have somebody do it all for you, and they manage that process, they host it for you. But every time you have any kind of change you want to make, either to your pricing or to an image or anything, you have to pay them to change that. So you can have the model that they're doing everything for you, or you can have the model that you are able to do the tweaking and you just get help doing that. And there is a massive price differential in that. The other benefit to it, or the other understanding to that, is that if you, I beg your pardon, somebody's at the door. If you have decided to let somebody do and manage your site for you, if you ever want to sell your business down the road, or you want to get investors, you have to show that you own it. And 9 times out of 10, you don't own that code. You don't own that website. It's the developer that you have paid to do that. And even understanding the first basics, and I know I'm trying to not use legalistic terms, but even to understand how initially you can get into trouble and how you can avoid it, you just have to know what you're buying, first of all.
Yeah,
so the first thing is to understand what you're buying when you're, and that can be done by making clear terms, whether you do it in an email or an agreement or however you decide that you're going to do it, but make sure you read it. You don't just say, oh, that price looks good to me. That person has made some really good websites that I really like. I'm happy with that. Versus the person who does the research and says, well, I understand this is what I'm buying. It's not exactly what I want, but at least down the road I can change it and I know how to make tweaks and I know what I'm paying for. And if I want to sell my website or my business or have investors come in, I know that I own that. And I think that's the initial error that I think people make legally and don't realize that. They get excited. They think that's a fabulous looking website. I'm going to use that person and they're the right price for me without understanding what that legal problem, which is really substantial. Because once you've paid that money to the developer who owns it, and all you get is access really to your business, you've just really thrown away a lot of money for something that you have misunderstood your ownership of. And then the second thing is, if you're selling things online, You need to know what your legal requirements are, because the Privacy Commissioner is out looking at all the sites now. You need to know what you're collecting. You need to understand and have compliance processes in place, even in your business. If you are a fitness, if you're collecting health information, you're a masseuse, you're a coach, all of those online businesses collect information which is considered personal about people's health, whether they've had any injuries, whether if you're coaching, sometimes you're collecting financial information or information that is personal, about somebody's stress levels or sleep. All of that is personal information. So you need to have processes in place to manage that and tell people how you're managing it. And so that's all considered, part of your privacy and a privacy policy that you should have for your business. And your terms and conditions are really important. They protect your business. They protect how, if there is a claim, how you're going to manage that. And I actually skipped a point in all of this. The other really fundamental key issue that I think people need to understand when they're starting an online business is whether they're setting up as a sole trader. Are they just registering a business name, which really does not have a lot of legal recognition, unfortunately, and people think that they do? Or are they setting up a company, PTY limited company, that you're protected, your house is not at risk? If you're a sole trader and you have a claim against you, all your personal assets are at risk. Your house, your car. If you have a PTY limited company, it's only the assets that are in the company that are at risk, and unless there's fraud or negligence or something, quite substantial. These are pretty fundamental things to understand when you're setting up a business, online or otherwise, but particularly online. And I find a lot of people either don't understand or they don't want to put the money into setting up a company. That's fine so long as you understand the risks. And if you're going to not spend the money setting up a PTY limited company, all the more reason why your terms and conditions should be really strong, really match your business, really make it clear to the consumer what you're selling, what your terms of your business are. And I think that's your second level of protection. If you're not going PTY limited company, your next best level of protection is having really strong terms for your business, terms and conditions. So, make sure you really, the protection is as important as having a successful business. Yeah. Because there are unfortunately people out there who will protect their souls and happily sue you thinking you have a business, that they're going to blame somebody for something that might go wrong with whatever good or service it is that you're selling. And it's unfortunate, but it's possible these days. And even if they don't have anything to base it upon, that you have to go through the process. And so I'm really emphatic about people who are setting up their businesses and online businesses need to understand how to protect themselves. Yeah. And the next best thing to having a PTY limited company, you still need terms and conditions anyway, but the terms and conditions of your site are really, really important.
That's brilliant advice, Vanessa. I love it. And I think that's so important because many, many business owners, I think, go in blind, not knowing the risks that they're actually exposing themselves to when they're starting out by not being aware of all the legal issues that they need to cover starting up. So I love that. Thank you. I want to touch on one other thing, which I think is going to be really valuable. And you touched on it. And I think what a great value add that you offer within Legal 123 is that you keep all the templates and things updated because the laws change so much. So this happened to me recently is that the privacy laws changed. And obviously I'm in marketing and in the digital marketing space myself. And one of the biggest things is that we always talk about building your email list because really that's your number one asset from an online marketing point of view. But around the legal requirements, around the Can Spam Act, Vanessa, as well as, emailing everybody, I'd love for you to cover that. If you don't mind, just touching on that a little bit, is how important it is to make sure that you have actual opt-in agreements from people that are actually opting into your website, and then how you can actually carry on emailing and ensuring that you are compliant to the Can Spam Act.
That's actually a really good point. There's so many, as you rightly point out, there's so many aspects to running a business that you need to understand. And there are a lot of little legal tweaks and, even not to be off topic, but even when you're running a contest or a competition, you need a license unless you have asked a skill testing question. There's ways to avoid certain legal requirements that can save you a lot of time and money. And one of the things that you've rightly pointed out is when you're collecting email lists and when you have subscribers, when you're even, collecting customer emails who are not subscribers, that they're very, very strict now. And it's unfortunate because people became a little bit too emphatic with their marketing efforts, I think, over the years, and their ability to access people's email addresses, that laws have come in that said, you have to make sure that these people want to receive your email, is really the nutshell version to it. So if you think about when you're sending an email out to any one of your lists, you think, do these people want this email? So for that reason, you have to give them, and this is quite regulatory, the option to opt out. So there should always be an unsubscribe option. It has to be, and they're very strict about this, easily available. The easiest way to do that is to include one on every single one of your emails. So if you're sending out a newsletter, if you're sending out an email of a new product you have, you want to just say hello or Merry Christmas to your clients, you still should have and need to have a method for them to unsubscribe. That's the first premise, no matter what you send out. Yeah. And even before that, if you are collecting and sending to people, you really should have, and this should be on your subscribe auto, it should almost be like an autoresponder. When somebody signs up to subscribe, they should have to either you send an auto email to their email address, and they have to click, yes, this is me, I'm happy to receive these, or they have to put in, you often see those codes that they have to put in a code to say, this is really me, it's not, I understand it's not going to be spam, this is what I would like to receive. What you really need to do is make sure that these people have actively subscribed. And so every once in a while, you get somebody who says, and this has happened to us too, I have never subscribed, stop sending me, how dare you, this is breaching Spam Act. And the only way they could have subscribed to our blog is by actively putting in the code that is sent to them to say, yes, actually, I want to. So there's absolutely no way we could have spammed them in any sense. But of course, people forget they do this, and you say that's fine. But the third thing that you need to do is if they want to unsubscribe and for some reason they're telling you that they can't or they don't know how to do it, or you must do it within 24 hours immediately, as quickly as possible, clear them off the list. And you have no right to keep their email address if they say, I would like to be off all your lists. You actually must delete them, even from your shopping cart, from everything. That's a legal requirement. And probably the last thing I would mention on this is if you have a business that sells or shares email addresses with another party. So by that I mean some businesses are in the field that they sell or share email addresses with their advertisers. So it's not necessarily, they're not selling them to the world at large, But that's part of a service they offer their advertisers on their site. You actually have to have active agreement from each of the people, each of your email subscribers or anybody that you're passing the details on to. You have to have an opt-in, an actual active agreement to say, it's okay, I'm happy for you to provide those email addresses to someone else. So you can't just, it's not enough that the people have agreed to subscribe to your email addresses, your blog. It's not enough to say, I hope you read this in my terms and bury it in the terms. You actually have to have their active agreement to pass on their details to anybody else.
That's fantastic, Vanessa. Great advice. And, as you said, there's so many moving parts to an online business, and it really is, I think, absolutely essential to make yourself really aware of everything that you require so that you can't, because as you said, people are becoming more and more vigilant as the whole online marketing, online business world explodes, really. It's only going to get more and more. And I think it's really important that people are aware of that. And especially, women starting out, particularly our listeners who may be starting out in business, to really be aware of the things that you need to be aware of before anything bad happens, right?
Yes, please don't come to me only because bad things happen.
That's right. So I'd love to change gear a little bit now. Thank you, Vanessa, for that. And I'd love to change gear a little bit now and really talk about, what launching Legal 123 has meant to you, and really, what you get out of being a business owner. And I'm going to use the term entrepreneur as well. And really what moving from corporate into your own business has meant for you.
It's fantastic to run your own business. It is. I can't pretend it's not stressful. I can't pretend it's not a lot of work, but you're doing something and creating something that is your own. You're answerable to yourself. You're the person that is in charge of making decisions for other people that you're employing as well. We're fortunate to have other lawyers that work with us. And the other thing I think that's probably one of the most rewarding out of all of this is that I'm helping other people start their businesses too. I'm helping them do what I did. And it is where everything is moving. It is where business is moving, which is really exciting to be part of. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting to see, for me, it's exciting to see where the laws were actually driving the laws. When there is a problem with an online business issue, that is something that is identified. It goes to the regulators, and they were driving the next set of changes to the laws. Not as exciting for other people, I'm sure, but it is in our business. But it's really fantastic to have clients and customers come back to you and say, look, here's my business. I'm on the next phase now. I've got investors. Can you help me? I mean, that's a fabulous feeling to see that you've helped them grow their business. And we have such a great community of clients who promote our work, who have fantastic businesses. They're helping the environment, they're helping people in their everyday lives, make their lives easier, offering services to make their lives easier, things that you would really want and thought, oh, I wish I could have, found that or done that. Or it's an amazing community to be able to help these people start the businesses. It's really rewarding. And then probably the last thing is, it's a bit flexible too. Mm-hmm. You can be really anywhere in the world. If you need to travel, we have family from time to time who are overseas, who unfortunately become ill, or if you want to, spend some time with them, you can really do your business from anywhere in the world. And it is on your own time, and it is weekends. I have to say it's often weekends too, but you have an element of control over that. If you want to go out for a run, or if you've got something you need to do, it is rewarding. It is fantastic, and we're very, very lucky. You meet some fantastic people too that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to.
True, that's right. I think the small business community really is, as you say, where you really are impacting positive change in other people's lives and their businesses. And I think, as you say, Vanessa, it really is so fulfilling and extremely challenging, of course. But I think that the pros definitely, well, for me, and it sounds with you, is really outweigh the cons. Yes, it's long hours, it's hard hours, but you do have the flexibility. It's loads of fun as well, and then you've also got really fulfilling because you are making it's so you can actually see the difference that you're making in other people's lives, I think, and that really is very rewarding. So I totally agree with you on that one.
It is, and the community, the startup community, they're driven, interesting, motivated people, and which is fabulous to work with, and I think that in itself is something that reflects back on you, and you get the energy from them, and I think that that's really quite a fabulous element, that you get to work with a great team.
That's right. That's fantastic. So I wanted to, again, change tacks a little bit and really focus on the challenges now. We touched on it a little bit, Vanessa, but really for you, we have ups and downs on our entrepreneurial journey, but is there kind of one challenge that you can really identify with, that you've experienced in your business, that you can really highlight and share with our listeners that perhaps will help them as they go through their own journeys?
The first, there were several. There's a lot of challenges, and it's really understanding the online world. I mean, this was our first online business, and it's not like a bricks and mortar business. So there are a lot of elements you have to get across, and you have to be a tiny bit of an expert in across a whole lot of areas. And then you think you've got everything set up and you're ready to go, and you're looking around to understand why you don't have the customers you thought you would have, because you've got the great idea, you've got the great business, your website looks fantastic, but you have to understand what the customers, they're coming, even they might be coming, but they're not asking you questions, they're not purchasing. So getting over that first hurdle is really a challenge, because you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know how to find it out. And you can A/B test, and you can speak to people, and they're all very polite and say, that looks lovely, and it doesn't necessarily help you. So it's really, again, being flexible, not giving up, believing in what you're doing, that you're providing a service that you would yourself want. You have to throw sort of the whole idea that this is not going to work out the window, and say, of course this is going to work. If it's not working in this direction, let's try this direction. And, I think the online legal model is quite different to selling normal goods and services online, like kitchenwares or, bedspreads or whatever it might be. Legal services is quite different. So to get into that mindset, I'm not, selling to lawyers. I'm selling to the general population who's not used to buying that kind of service. So getting over that hurdle, I think, was really, really the biggest one, and understanding how to make it accessible and understand that it's not a model that you can run through your friends on Facebook. It's not social media is not the traditional way that people buy legal services. So I think that for us was really a challenge. It was really frustrating to have everything look great and have all fabulous products and be ready to help people, and just it took a while for people to catch on and understand what we were offering.
So what were the steps that you took, Vanessa? And I agree with you, there's so many moving parts that you really have to become an expert in all these little areas to really know, to get the big picture view of what actually needs to be done, to be able to, once you've got your great idea, to be able to get it out there and get your voice heard, if you like. And that's very similar to the women that we work with in our community, is that they've got this great idea, but then they've got to actually get get the business out there, and they've actually got to have their voices heard. And there's the whole mindset aspect of it, but there's also the marketing and actually the knowledge of actually how you get the word out there. So what were the steps that you took really to educate yourself, really, Vanessa, around the different moving parts and being able to get your business out into the world, really?
You have to be willing to try everything, because you just don't. Again, it's the don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what where your customers are coming from, and you don't know what they're looking for and where they're looking. And so it's being across everything. You make sure that you have a service that people might be interested on social media. So you provide information, not necessarily pushing your products or services, but things that are helpful to people. Give them information and give them things that they would want to know. Make it interesting. But really, again, I go back to the try everything model. And maybe, and you might be surprised. Maybe it is a social media. Maybe it is an writing online articles. It might be, for some people, it's even some of my clients, they've gone around and they started with putting advertisements and flyers just to get the hype going, and offering free services, free goods, just to get people, they believed in what they were doing. And so there was everything from some people have food products, and so they stood around and handed out samples and hired students to do that. And once people sort of got the name, saw the T-shirts, that was a way of marketing. Standard marketing does not work with online. So you have to throw the model of the standard on TV marketing or ads in newspapers or adverts in the normal standard models. That's not, online shoppers don't necessarily find you that way.
I love that.
And so you have to throw it out the window.
Yeah, and just try. I love that advice. Try everything. And, again, where you're coming from, that whole idea of mindset, I think, is that you've got to just be willing to take that next step, So not get stuck in the I don't know, but just try something. I think just be in action and try something, learn from it, move on. And really that's how you grow. That's how you're in action. That's how you're in momentum. And the more that you try things, I think, Vanessa, the more that you actually get more feedback from customers, or you get more data back, or so that you can make more informed decisions along the way, right?
That's exactly right. And even if it's not immediate, it eventually happens and it grows, and you're in the back of people's minds, and they think, oh yes, I do need that, or I hadn't thought of that, but I know I saw somebody somewhere, and they'll look it up, or they'll look you up online, and it grows. It's a bit organic. I think the internet is quite organic. It's not traditional at all. You can spend an awful lot of money doing traditional advertising, and it won't necessarily sell your goods and services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vanessa, if you were to look back now with the experience and knowledge that you've got now, and look back and when you were first starting, and that you were in momentum, you were trying everything, what advice would you give to startups who don't, apart from just trying everything, what would be your biggest lessons learned, I guess, from when you first started, and that particular challenge that you had, that you needed to try everything because you didn't, you needed to be an expert in every area?
I think you can, even though I did profess that you have to know a little bit about everything, and do a lot of research. I think that that's fundamental, but also don't get caught up in it. At some point, you have to press the button and start. And your website might not be perfect when you first open. It should be almost perfect, because you get one shot with your reputation. And if somebody comes to your website and says, oh my goodness, that doesn't work, or that's not very appealing, then, they might not come back again. But equally so, there's a point where you have to everything is not going to be perfect. You're going to have to move and be flexible. So there's a point where you have to press the button and say, this is going to be good. This is how we'll start out. And then we will move and improve once we get feedback and once our customers come. So I think from that perspective, that is a really good lesson to learn, that, there is a point where you have to be, your business might not be exactly what you want it to be, but if you're open and you're flexible, you learn a lot off your customers, your competitors. And that's another thing. There are people who are going to copy you. There will be people who, and you have to just put your head down. And in my view, put your head down, concentrate, and believe in what you're doing. And don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Do what you're doing and do it really well and be passionate about it. I can safely say that 90% of our most successful startup customers are successful because they're not worried about litigating about somebody else who might have copied an image, or they send them a note and they look after it, but they don't get caught up in the minutiae. And then one other really big lesson that it took me a very long time to realize is I can't do everything. You can't do everything yourself, and you can't do it well if you try to. You have to learn to delegate and to outsource. There's other people who can do. Your time could be spent elsewhere, better elsewhere in a lot of cases. And really, you do have to plan, though. You can't just pop a website up there and hope you're going to do well. Do a little business model, do a little business plan, and make sure you know where you're going and have some goals and objectives, and keep track of your finances, because you, again, don't want to get into a position where you can't continue. And I think those are the smartest things that you can do to give yourself a really good base.
Yeah.
And protect yourself. And the rest is just about the passion and the drive and believing in what you do. And I think you can't. It would be very difficult to fail.
That's right. And I love that. I really want to highlight that one point that you touched on, Vanessa, because it really is a sticking point for so many women, is that's what holds them back, is that sense of perfection. Everything has to be 100% perfect before they press the publish button, or before they make that first speech, or before they shoot their first video, or whatever it is that it's got to be perfect. And, I think that's the biggest difference between men and women, is men, okay, it's good enough, let's ship it, whereas women really try to make everything perfect. And I read a great quote by Seth Godin the other day, who said 70% is the new perfect, I think he said, And I thought, that what a great way. You don't have to put out shoddy work, but 70% is, it's good enough to ship, and you can learn from it, tweak it as you go. And I just think that's great advice from you. So thank you for that. I just think it's really, really essential.
It is really important, because things are moving so fast with the internet. Absolutely. By the time you get it to your perfect, it's moved in another direction already. And I think you have to really sometimes just say, this is great, I'm happy with this. It's not exactly what I would like, but I'm happy with it, and let's move on it.
That's great. Yeah, great advice. I want to wrap up because I'm really mindful of your time, Vanessa, but I've got a couple of last questions that I'd love to ask of you. And the one is really around female entrepreneurship, and specifically because our audience is women specifically, and you probably coming from quite a male dominated industry in the legal profession, certainly many years back. It's probably changed considerably since then. But what do you think is the biggest barrier for female entrepreneurs today? What do you think holds them back the most, and why?
A few things, but confidence. I think, interestingly, women don't necessarily believe in themselves as much as they deserve to. And I think having that confidence and believing in what you do is really important. And I think, unfortunately, it takes very little to bring down the confidence of a woman, whether it be, do you think you can manage that as well as everything else that you're doing? Or, that it takes very little. Whereas I think with men, they're a bit more fortunate. They just have to sort of get up and go to work. And I don't mean to belittle it at all, but women seem to manage 10 different jobs. And they are very good at multitasking. And so because they can multitask, I think up with more jobs as a result. They get the house management and the maybe the men manage the finances, maybe they don't, but they, they're managing the house, they're managing the holidays, they're managing kids in school and a number of things, as well as a job. And so I think that is a really tricky it's tricky to overcome and find your own time and find your own space. And I think for women in particular, they have to make sure that they take that time for themselves to do what they want. It might be keeping fit. It might be starting a business. It might be but I think that they think it's selfish to do that. And I think that's actually a survival tool that women give up in their lives that I think is really, really important. And I just find men are more likely to say, I need my time with the boys, or I need my time to watch my sports, and I know that sounds stereotypical and that's not what I mean at all. I just mean it's been the traditional model that the women are doing 10 jobs and they don't take the time out for them.
That's right.
They'll take the time out for the kids or to be with their husband, but not for them.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably something that I would highly recommend if it's starting a business, if it's keeping fit, if it's, just taking time for you to do something nice. I think it's really important, and I don't think enough women do that.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that, and that's also great advice. I'm a huge advocate of self-care myself. Is that I've kind of felt burnout a couple of times, and it's just so important. You need that time to yourself to really, because I think if you can really care for yourself, you can actually care for everybody else so much better too. So I think it's really important to put you as number one. So that's really, really great, Vanessa. Thank you for that. And then my last two questions. One is, do you have a specific woman that really inspires you, like a role model, if you like? Or I know there's amazing women out there doing amazing things, but is there one specifically that you can really tap into that really inspires you?
That's a very tricky question. I've been so lucky to work with some really amazing women who have done amazing things, amazing careers. They're amazingly diplomatic with a lot of difficult situations. But coming out of the corporate world, it's actually my clients that there's a lot of women who are, again, managing 95 different things, but they say, this is important to me, I'm going to find time for it, and they start their own business. I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but I know how hard it is to do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't have all of the demands that a lot of other women have. But to me, it's those women that step back and say, this is important to me, I'm going to do it, and they put their heart and soul into it, and they do take that time for themselves, and they do manage to set up businesses that are important to them.
Fantastic, love it. And yes, and we go back to our clients, and making a difference to our clients' lives, and then it's a ripple effect, right? It's a knock-on effect, and that's just again coming back to being how rewarding and fulfilling entrepreneurship really is. I think, Vanessa, it's fantastic. And my final quote my final question before we wrap up is: do you have a famous business or life quote that you live by? I love
There's so many great ones out there. And again, this probably sounds cliche, but when I was a little girl, my father used to always say to me, he'd say, if you reach for the moon, you will land on the stars. And that's always stuck with me. And I don't even think I know who said that, but it's somebody like Les Brown. I think he was an American businessman. And that's always stuck with me. And I thought, that's true. And probably the other thing that's always stuck with me too is, I think so long as you run your life and including your business, just don't have regrets. Make sure there's nothing that you wish you had of. And I think for me, that's the most important thing. If you're thinking about doing it, if it's something you want to try, you only get one chance. at this life and this day, just do it. I think you have to. You owe it to yourself. And then I can honestly say if I turned around tomorrow and something happened to me, I'm really, really fortunate and I have no regrets because I feel that I've lived a lot.
Oh, Vanessa, what a beautiful way to end. I mean, that's just so inspiring and empowering for all our women. It really is. Don't have any regrets. Don't be too scared. Don't let the fear get in front of you to really be able to live the life and that you really want to live. So I just love that. And thank you so much. And
you don't know if you don't try.
Exactly. So I would love to send our listeners your way because I think the service and the products that you offer are just phenomenal. I'm so excited. I'm going to certainly be checking them out myself. And where can everybody find you online, Vanessa?
We're at www.legal123.com.au.
Lovely. And that's the numbers 1, 2, 3.
We also, if you have any question, I beg your pardon?
Sorry, and that's the numbers 1, 2, 3, right?
Yes, it's legal123.com.au. And if you have any questions, we've got a query page. If there's something on there that you'd like to know more about, or if you want customized legal advice or customized legal terms or whatever it might be, we're happy to help out.
That's beautiful. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time today. It's really been invaluable. I've learned a lot and I'm sure our listeners would have too. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Women Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way, you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.